Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of Ag and Conversation. We are so excited to be joined by Jade, Chia and Leanne Blacklock today, who are Escalator alumni. They were on our Escalator cohort where Myfanwy and I met. And Leanne has started, supported by Jade, a new business that is going to be selling veal. So really exciting as a solution to bobby calves and some of the other big issues in the dairy industry. And we are super excited to jump in, learn more about what they've been up to up in Taranaki. So, Leanne, should we kick off? We'd love you to introduce yourself and let our listeners know a little bit more about you, and then we'll get Jade to introduce herself, and then we can jump into the business.
Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction, and it's really nice sitting here seeing everybody. It feels like not that long ago since we were all in Escalator. I am Leanne. I am part of a husband and wife team that we have a dairy farm here in the beautiful Taranaki with the Jersey Cross herd. My other hat that I wear is chartered accountant, so I get to get this beautiful blend between business and farming. And in this time, which we are just imminently starting, I get to start rearing all of the calves, of which I spend quite a bit of time investing in teaching and educating and advocating in that space as well. So that's kind of where the foundational transferable skills, I guess you could say, for all of the Rose Gold Veal came from.
That's awesome, Leanne. That's quite the picture for everyone else. You've got lots of different hats on there, and I guess that explains a little bit how you've come to this point, because you can see things from a lot of different angles and a lot of what is going on. You've got a great overview there. Jade, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved?
Sure. So met everyone on the Escalator program, but my background's not in primary industries. It's around FMCG, so more downstream about consumer
You're going to have to
goods.
explain what FMCG stands for, sorry.
You're right. It's fast-moving consumer goods. So more the manufactured products that go out to retail channels. So anything that's kind of produced from a raw material. So that's mainly my background. Specializing in commercialization and bringing to life ideas into actual products, and the strategy side of that as how to get them into markets. So that's kind of my background, and I've been dabbled a little bit in the emerging technology space or emerging primary industry space. Yeah, so that's kind of the lens that I bring. It's more a market, I suppose, focused perspective.
Really cool. So it's quite a nice partnership between the two of you with your on-farm skills and then also your direct-to-consumer skills, Jade, and bringing that partnership to life. So one of the challenges, I guess, that we talked about offline that I think we could just kick off with is veal is a bit of an unknown product, particularly in New Zealand. And when you've got a new product, that's a barrier. You've got to cross that chasm to get people to buy it, to know what it is, to get familiar, to know how to use it, how it would fit in their weekly routine. So do you want to give us a bit of a rundown, ladies, on what veal is, some of the benefits of it, and why people might want to look at how this would work in their weekly cooking schedule?
There's probably two ways to sort of frame it. If we look more upstream, it's the bobby calf problem, which Leanne can probably speak to, and Rose Gold Veal offers a solution to that problem. And then if we look at the market opportunities that lie there and exploring a new product, that's also sort of a different angle that we can take. But perhaps maybe we start with the bobby calf problem and addressing that, and then we can lead into the market approach.
Okay, I'll kick that off. So, and it isn't a great secret that New Zealand has a lot of byproduct calves that are born exiting out of the dairy industry every year. And typically they're called bobby calves, and they are sent for what is kind of confusingly, but they are actually sent for veal at 4 days old. And that seems to be kind of a wasted opportunity for being able to develop further. The industry at the moment is very reactive. Dairy farmers have to get these animals off farm. We don't have the space, the time, the energy to be able to continue to rear them. And yet we're not able to really maximize any kind of value out of them, leaving it up to the abattoirs and the big processors to find and develop markets and get sort of what is a large influx of animals offshore and exported straight away. European standards, customer demands are coming at us quite hard in terms of customers wanting to see through into provenance stories. And there's always going to be a risk around essentially a license to operate if we don't start addressing some of these issues that the consumers find unpalatable. And it's not a case of just rearing more animals. If we could take an additional 2 million more animals, more cattle on New Zealand and find markets for them, we absolutely would. And the solution would have already been right in front of us. One of the biggest struggles we have in New Zealand, being a grass-based system, is wintering. We don't actually grow enough feed over the winter to be able to just contain an extra 2 million animals, even had we wanted to. And those are the kinds of numbers that we are looking at. Thinking about that and looking with my calf rearing lens on around accelerated growth, how big could we get a calf born in spring so that they're available for processing prior to that first winter? Can we maximize what we're doing over the summer to be able to take these animals that would normally exit out of the industry at 4 days old through to 6 months and create a high value prospect with that? So that was my first challenge and I've been playing with accelerated growth rates and stuff over the last 8 to 10 years, just kind of quietly doing a couple for myself and processing them at home and consuming them myself until I'd perfected the system. So now we're getting into the place of being able to commercial with a new product. So the product itself is Rose Veal. So again, if we look in the lens of consumer demand, veal itself has a terrible connotations. Myfa, you might know this from some of your UK background, of calves that were kept on milk in terrible conditions to grow as large as they could and then be slaughtered. And they had a real welfare piece. And from a lot of the British and European consumer perspective, the veal industry itself contracted hugely as consumers walked away from those kinds of animal welfare standards and refused to buy.
Yeah, it was a huge issue in the UK. And then we were transporting very young calves over to Europe as well, which led another whole issue in itself. So yeah, it's a controversial meat, isn't it?
It is. And I think the difference is within the traditionally that would be a white veal, so those calves would never have access to grain, grass, outdoors, anything like that, in order to essentially keep the iron in their diet very low so that the meat stayed very white. And the difference with rose veal is these animals are outdoors. They do have access to grass and grain. So the meat itself, from a chemical perspective, is getting the iron into it, and it is starting to turn pink and on its way to being a red meat that you would expect from beef. So slightly different product, but I think that is more testament to the welfare standards of what these animals are reared into to create what is a premium product.
That's really interesting, because there's obviously this big push now, animal sentience, etc. So not just ensuring the 5 freedoms, but making sure that your animals live a positive experience while they're on your property and while they're alive. And so it sounds like this rose veal option is almost like the best option without just having all the cows living forever, which is obviously completely unsustainable. So yeah, that's fantastic, Leanne. It sounds like you're really ticking some boxes that are going to be top of mind for consumers in the next 10 years.
Definitely. And I think if we take a market lens on that as well, it's almost like a different category of meat, a different eating quality. That's how I would describe it. The meat is a lot more tender. It tastes different. It's got a certain taste to it that you wouldn't find in your premium beef or anything like that. So it creates this product where it's new, it's different. It's solving the bobby calf issues as well. Yeah, it's about the eating experience. Something that's quite interesting to think about that Leanne and I have talked to each other about in great extent is probably the lamb story as well. Looking at how lamb is a high quality premium product offering. Everyone's, knows what lamb is. It's something that a lot of Kiwis eat. And there's this sort of like ethical story that's wrapped around lamb that we can sort of get around. And why is that?
Point, Jade. Yeah, that's a really great way to challenge us, because we all just don't think twice about eating lamb. In fact, people turn their nose up at mutton, which I obviously have a problem with. I think mutton's great, but are happy to eat the baby sheep, but we're not happy to eat baby cow. So yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, just focusing on that taste aspect alongside that mindset aspect, I wonder if this is developed from taste in a way, because a steak, like you mentioned, usually has intramuscular marbling and a decent amount of fat on it, if we're thinking about Scotch fillet. So when you're talking about the rose veal, are we likening it more to a venison-like product, like quite lean, which obviously has different health properties, which would change the taste profile? Is that what you're talking about? Just to help people picture that?
Yeah, it certainly is a lean meat. There are benefits in eating veal, particularly rose veal. Yeah, it lends itself, a meat like that lends itself to certain types of cooking. And also, it can be paired with different things. So the different types of wine pairings that you wouldn't necessarily get with your more traditional sort of meats as well. So there's this kind of eating experience that we're kind of not really tapping into just yet, that we are able to unlock with veal, particularly rose veal.
Yeah, interesting.
On the lamb story, if people would understand that lamb generally would say it doesn't have as much flavour as mutton. And I think Miffy will start nodding there going, I prefer the mutton. And exactly what you said, Emily, around the fat. In beef, traditionally we rely on the intramuscular fat to also provide that tenderness in terms of the shear of when you're cutting it and that kind of thing. The beautiful thing with veal is it being lean but being young, it keeps its tenderness but still being lean. It's kind of the best of both worlds. I wouldn't compare it to venison. I think venison to me on the scale tends to be even more kind of irony, almost a little bit darker than beef. I would take it back to more the lamb compared to mutton. It typically doesn't have a strong umami, iron sort of metallic-y kind of flavour like beef. It's very much kind of getting into lamb crossed with pork in a lot of ways in terms of like a lesser flavour. As Jade alluded to, certainly suits certain types of cooking. And if you think of your French and your Italian cooking with the amazing wine sauces and herbs and everything, because it doesn't dominate over the pairings that you're putting with it.
Yeah, interesting. And I was just thinking again about comparing it to lamb and like why we're happy to eat Myfanwy baby sheep, honestly. Like a lot of lamb that's killed in New Zealand is taking, like it's not, I mean, there is a weaning draft. And they are quite large, like heavy weights, but they've had access to pasture. So again, they're not a white meat, like how you were talking about the veal. Obviously, the flesh isn't white like chicken. It's just what they're talking about, what it's been eating. So the fact that the lamb has always had access to grass, and then typically a lamb would then have access to grass or fodder crop, sometimes grain, before we kill it. So it's actually more aligned to what you're talking about with this rose veal, in that it's having its milk and then it's getting access to a range of pasture or grain or muesli or whatever you're giving it as well on top of that. So it is older than the 4 days or what, the previous thought of what veal was. It is probably more akin to the life cycle of a lamb, which is quite interesting. And I guess when you do think about that, it makes sense that it has that innate tenderness that you get on like a French rack or something like, or a lamb fillet that doesn't require all of that cooking to get that tenderness. It's a quality within the meat. And then, like you say, that really pairs well with some of those types of cooking, but also pairs well with the modern life. Because a meat like that, it's same with venison. Like when I was talking about venison, I was meaning the leanness of it. It's a quick cook. You can come home from work with a salad and put that in the pan and that will be cooked in 15 minutes without hot sear, finish in the oven really easily, which is I guess the convenience piece that people are going down these days as well.
You're onto it. You sound like perfect consumers.
Well, we'll be right up for a taste test when the moment arises. Don't worry, just send us a recipe and then we'll definitely get stuck in.
Definitely would never turn my nose up at a red meat.
No, and I'm sure Iz will be a real fan. She's a real meat eater, isn't she? So from what you're saying, a bit of work needs to go on in the marketplace to educate customers and end consumers. So what's your vision? What are you guys going to do? How are you going to change everyone's sort of mindset on veal and get them to embrace rose veal and have it as a regular staple on a sort of fancy restaurant or as a treat feed for a family?
Originally, we were going to go with, I suppose, fancy restaurants, for lack of a better word, because it's about that eating experience. I mean, with any product, right? You can't convince people or sell. Well, you can't really sell to people who don't want to be sold to, and that's kind of the point. We don't really want to educate people who are strictly not wanting to be educated, or people who are not open to the idea. And we're very respectful of that as well. They're obviously not the target market for us. And we're led by our values. So it's around understanding who we are, Rose Gold Veal, our team, the vision that we have, why we're doing that, is understanding the problem that we are solving. And even from a farmer point of view, it's creating higher value per an animal in terms of a return on the same amount of land. So there's different angles that you can take from that. I think it's understanding the different facets of the business and how we came to be is probably the education piece that I'd focus on a little bit more. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. It's just another product that's sort of out there in the market, which you see a lot of. We're more focused around telling the story and actually helping people understand the solution that we're creating,
I
not
love
just
that.
about the high quality eating experience. That's obviously the end goal and the benefit, but it's everything else that goes into it.
That's so important these days. I think people don't just go out and buy, well, most of the time they don't just go, like we were in the supermarket the other day and the girls were getting quite embarrassed because I was rifling through the bacon, trying to find the New Zealand grown, manufactured and produced. The whole thing was New Zealand bacon. And it's actually really, really, really hard. I managed to find some, shout out to Freedom Farms, and they're great bacon, but it's actually really hard. But that's more of what a consumer wants now, is to have that story, that full buy-in, so that they can understand, Leanne's growing these animals on the farm. They're having this really great life. They can go along and follow on the socials. They can come along and look at your website. They can get involved. They can order from you guys. And then what they're eating on their plate, they believe is helping solve a bobby problem, but also giving an animal a really great experience at life before it's consumed. So great idea, guys. Really, really love that. And so hopefully that's a really positive way to go about it. You get some great results.
Yeah, it's exciting to see one solution to this problem that we're talking about. And I think exciting to see you stepping out into an emerging market that really is untapped. And there's not a lot of players thinking there are a lot of people thinking in the space. There's not a lot of people taking action in this space to solve the problem. So where to next? What stage? Tell us more about the actual business and what stage you're at and what the runway to market is.
So with my farming and accounting skills, I came to Jade and said, I've created this product, which I think is a goer, and kind of put the financials around it, and so much else. And it I got it to the farm gate. And then, short of setting up a roadside stall, that's kind of as far as my knowledge. And this is the power of collaboration and bringing in really good people who have skills that you don't have, which has been great. So I met with Jade when I was in Auckland, and we sat down. We had, I think it was 2 or 3 coffees in the end, because one coffee wasn't enough. And I said, I've got this really crazy out the gate idea, and she's come in to provide energy and direction and strategy in terms of those, exactly that, the pathway to launch, where we should be heading, what works, what doesn't, how distribution chains work, all of this kind of stuff that just is not even on my radar. It's a whole different language. So at this point, we did our first commercial trials through a local processor in February and March, and it was a very soft launch through one of the local cafes here in Taranaki, and placing it very carefully in a couple of gourmet butchers around the country, and quietly in a couple of restaurants in Wellington. And that went well. I'm always mindful, and this is the cynic in me, that people like to say nice things. They don't give you that real full-on constructive feedback all the time. It's hard to kind of go what needs to be refined, but that went really well.
Maybe they just loved it, Leanne. There's always that option.
Maybe they did.
Relentlessly positive. Fine.
So, and the incredible amount of learning that's still going on as we're developing this. So we're a block calving, spring calving herd, which meant that by February, March of this year, I had no animals left on the ground. So I went in and replenished my stocks, so to speak. I was able to make acquaintances of a farm on the other side of the Maunga, on the other side of the mountain, that has an opposite calving spread to us, and purchase some of their autumn bobby calves, which
fantastic.
I'm now bringing through. And we'll see. Autumn calves have been quite a different process. The dietary requirements stack up differently, because obviously winter grass is very different to the spring stuff that I'm totally familiar and used to feeding, because it all has to sit within biological reference. This is not necessarily about artificially feeding them in a shed or feedlotting them type thing. So there are biological limits to what you can do. So yeah, I'm learning. It's not all going straightforward, but we're getting there. So those animals will be ready about mid-September. They'll be starting to reach their target weights. and begin to be processed again, which is where I hand over to the wonderful Jade and once again say, I have this wonderful product. How do I get it out the gate?
And we do at the moment have a waiting list up on our website, which is www.rosegoldveal, or one word.com. You can sign up to the waiting list to get updates, but come September time, that'll be when we will launch into the food service. We'll look at getting them into some of those higher end restaurants. So I think with some initial talks that Leanne's had with some of the restaurateurs, there is some interest that's there, as well as some higher end butchers as well. So the distribution channel, or where we'll be available, is not necessarily in retail and stores. It'll be more through as a whole eating experience through food service.
Cool. So it's a real paddock to plate story, and you can trace it right back to the farm and then enjoy it in the food service, which I think is a fantastic, because sometimes cooking these products, people don't know how to do it properly, and then they just don't taste as good as they should. So I think having it start out in that, where people can go try it, get really familiar with it, continue that learning journey, it will be really exciting. Can't wait to see where it ends up and where we can go enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll definitely be buying some. I'm excited to try it. I remember having veal when I was a child, but I'm really excited to try rose veal. That sounds like, yeah, really tasty dish. You're going to have to send recipes. Are you looking to do that, to have sort of a direct-to-consumer situation going on, or is that not really what you want? You kind of want to almost have contracts fulfilled with a little bit direct-to-consumer?
I think eventually direct-to-consumer is an option, but for now, with the herd that we have at the moment, the focus will be through that food service channel.
Well, we look forward to seeing where the veal will be, and we can all go and have it cooked for us, which is actually probably the best idea, rather than getting it home and failing to cook it properly and then putting yourself off it.
I can't say that I'm the best chef either, or best cook, so that's probably a safe bet. Maybe we should revisit, have an eating experience together, see what we all think.
Yeah, I think that's great. Let's do that in person in a nice restaurant. That sounds great. We'll get Michelle along to pair the wines.
Absolutely.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Oh, well, this sounds like such a great product. I think it's so impressive how you've taken this big, hairy, audacious problem that you've just, it's just driving everyone nuts. Honestly, if I had $1 for every time I've sat in a room and discussed bobby calves through my feds role or through any of my other roles, honestly, I'd have quite a few dollars. And no one really has a solution. We go round and round in circles on it. So this is great to see someone grassroots level go, right, no, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to come up with, not completely, of course, we can't have that much veal flooding the market. We probably don't have the amount of veal consumers out there to eat it. But, every little helps. And if we can get some different options in place of non-replacement calves, as we're supposed to call them now, not bobby calves, non-replacement calves. So yeah, if we can get another solution, this is just, it's the best. It's great for our industry. It's looming. As for dairy farmers, we know this is our Achilles heel. We're just waiting for the day it blows up and absolutely decimates us on the export market. So it's really great that you guys are working so hard to provide a solution. So thank you so much for that.
No, I think that's the thing. Like, obviously we want to start local, but the end goal is to go global. So if we could work together to feed or create that demand globally, then we all sort of win together. It's not just one farmer, it's sort of every what are they called? Not bobby calves, but what's the term that you use, Myfanwy?
Non-replacement calves.
Non-replacement calf farmer.
Yeah, well, it helps people understand, because not everyone knows what a bobby calf is. It's quite a random term. I didn't know until I moved to New Zealand. So yeah, I think it's just taking away from that image that comes to your mind when you think of bobbies. Not that they aren't well looked after by those of us, hey Leanne, who are slaving away looking after them every day.
Oh yeah. The tide is turning. The calving's just starting here, so we're ready to go, sort of.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for joining us today, girls. Really like learning about this new product to the market. I think some people go in an industry as old as time, essentially, red meat industry. It's really exciting to have a new innovation, not just in a cut or a preparation, but actually a new sort of animal come to the market and that's, you know, going to be in a lot more attractive way. I really liked how you compared it to lamb in terms of not the taste profile, but the life cycle, in terms of how it's getting the milk feed, it's then being weaned onto some kind of pasture or grain, and then getting prepared to come onto the plate, and the way that it is quite a lean meat, and then also how you pair that with different flavors. I think it's really exciting, and I think that is, yeah, like we've talked about, like a really big step forward for the dairy market, but I think it is also really exciting for consumers as well to have a new option.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just really stoked for you both. Well done. It's a lot of work I know will be going into this behind the scenes, and I'm really can't wait to see where this takes off too. You've done an amazing job, guys.
Can't wait to share the journey with you. Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll have you back on when you're a bit further down the line. Yeah, can't wait.